My mind's going blank now. What's the song that is played where everybody is on the chair, everybody, what I can't remember it.
I think it's a Mitch Hedberg joke or a Jack Handy joke. You know, that when I go, I want to go like my grandfather did, peacefully in his sleep. Not like the passengers in his car screaming. His poll numbers have been absolutely cratering. Now, they're cratering for basically one specific reason and then one general reason. So the specific reason is because of Afghanistan. The general reason is because Joe Biden is a houseplant. So he was elected because he was a houseplant, right? But he was a houseplant who's supposed to provide stability. The thing about houseplants is that they are barely alive, they cover the water stain, and they don't move around a lot. You don't have to worry about the houseplant. You leave the house for work in the morning, you come back, the houseplant's in exactly the same place. Maybe it's grown a little bit. That's pretty much it. But Joe Biden, elected as a houseplant, is actually turning out to be the plant from Little Shop of Horrors, right? He's eating everything else. He's, in terms of policy, he's very much alive, even though in terms of sentience, he is not. And so if you voted for Joe Biden, or if you are somebody in the middle who's kind of warm to Joe Biden, you're kind of getting the worst of both worlds. You're getting the non-sentient, non-charismatic president. Right? He's not like Obama in any of the areas of charisma or magnetism or personal draw. And you're getting the radical policy of Barack Obama, except on steroids, because actually Joe Biden's policies are way more radical than Barack Obama's were at this point, even in his presidency. And Obama was really radical on policy this early on in his presidency. And so every time Joe Biden now appears and seems to be doddering his way through a press conference, it hurts him rather than helping him. If he were a moderate and he were doddering his way through, people would be willing to say that that's kind of a feature, not a bug. All right, he's doddering, but the reason he's doddering is because we elected somebody to dodder. The whole point is we wanted somebody who moves slowly, incrementally, somebody who is not going to be threatening. Okay, but if he's threatening and also doddering, now it just seems like things are spinning out of control. And so every press conference that he has, where he seems incapable of holding it together, is a serious problem for him. That's why the Afghanistan debacle made so clear that he is just not in control, right? Even when he makes a call, those calls are so incapable of meeting with any sort of good policy that this seems like an administration where the brakes have been taken off and you literally have an octogenarian in charge of the car driving directly at a crowd. And everybody's kind of freaking out about that, which means that if you're a moderate on the fence, if you're Joe Manchin, or if you're Kristen Sinema, you're like, I don't want to be in this car. The future of this car is not good. Okay, so let's go to the doddering of Joe Biden, and then we'll get to the policy of Joe Biden. So when it comes to the doddering of Joe Biden, he just continues to lie and futz around. It really is not good for him. All of these things add up. Right? The way that people make decisions about politicians typically is that over and over and over, their preconceived notions about those politicians are either rejected or reinforced. Joe Biden every day is reinforcing the fact that he is not with us, that his policies are radical and he's not in control, that this is a car careening out of control, no brakes, octogenarian at the wheel who should have had his license revoked at least 5 years ago. Here was Joe Biden yesterday. He was doing a kind of meet and greet with a bunch of so-called Jewish leaders. I say so-called because a lot of the Jewish leaders that he was meeting with aren't particularly Jewish in any sort of religious sense. And they kind of lead Reconstructionist synagogues that don't reflect any of the principles of the Torah, that are not particularly interested in Jewish philosophy. But put that aside, Joe Biden is speaking to them, and he starts just telling lies about visiting the Tree of Life Synagogue. It turns out that he did not. The Tree of Life Synagogue, of course, was the site of the white supremacist shooting a couple of years ago. And he said he visited. He absolutely did not. He's just making things up.
I remember spending time at going to the Tree of Life Synagogue, speaking with them. It just is amazing. These things are happening in America.
Okay, and then he started doddering through a story about his daughter's wedding. He couldn't remember what was going on. It's very awkward. I mean, your grandpa is wandering off script. It's reminiscent. I think it's a Mitch Hedberg joke or a Jack Handy joke. You know, that when I go, I want to go like my grandfather did, peacefully in his sleep. Not like the passengers in his car screaming. That's the Democratic Party at this point. Right? Here's Joe Biden, again, kind of wandering off script into the cornfield.
My daughter married a Jewish young man. And I dream of every Catholic father that she marry a Jewish doctor. But all kidding aside, he did. He's a great surgeon. And they played, and my mind's going blank now. What's the song that is played where everybody is on the chair, everybody, what I can't remember it anyway. And that's the song that was played. So, I don't know what the hell's going on here.
Inspiring stuff there from the President of the United States. Very, very, very inspiring stuff. And then he added on top of this, he says, he starts talking about never again. Now, this is where you move from the senile to the rather unforgivable. Here's Joe Biden talking about never again, which of course is verbiage that is used surrounding the Holocaust, that we as the world will never allow this sort of stuff to happen again. I have some questions for Joe Biden about this particular perspective coming out of his face, his doddering, old, collapsing face. Here's the President of the United States.
I guess the point I want to make is that it just shows that if we walk away from never again, it's going to happen again. It can't happen again. And so I guess the point I'm making is that the attack in Pittsburgh, those attacks, all anti-Semitic attacks, aren't just a strike against the Jewish community. They're a strike against the soul of our nation.
Okay, I'm just going to point out, when he says we can't allow never again to happen, this is the same president who is currently attempting to cut a deal with the genocidal Iranian regime to allow them a pathway to nuclear weapons. Okay, this is the same president of the United States who is currently talking about opening a Palestinian consulate in Jerusalem, reopening the wounds of a process that has completely failed and incentivizing terror attacks in the region against Jews. This is the same president of the United States who, on another front, you want to talk about never again, just abandoned 38 million people to today's Nazis, the Taliban, who are literally going to go around just murdering everybody they don't like. This is already happening in Afghanistan right now. This is the same president who's been making kind overtures to China, which has become increasingly aggressive, meanwhile, holding in Xinjiang 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. So when this guy says, I'm anti, never again means something to me, no, it doesn't. It absolutely 100% does not. It's a bunch of words that he thinks he has to say in front of people. And here's the thing. He has no credibility on these issues. He just doesn't. His own administration has completely... Afghanistan is a perfect case in point. He literally just said, we're for human rights when we have to say things about it. But when we actually have to, do something basic like leaving 2,500 troops there with no actual combat casualties in a support role, then I won't do that. He is so unwilling to stand up for human rights. I mean, don't talk the language of human rights if you are literally unwilling to make even the most minute sacrifices on behalf of human rights. And not just human rights, by the way, American interests in Afghanistan, but as long as he's going to be saying never again. In the Jewish community, there's been talk for decades about why it was that the Allies didn't bomb the rail lines during the Holocaust. Why didn't the Allies send a few planes and just bomb the rail lines that were connecting various cities to the concentration camps? And the defense has always been, it was the middle of a war. You have to use those bombs where they are best utilized, namely against Nazi troops in more strategically necessary areas. That's an open argument, historically speaking. Okay, but here, we are not even talking about even that kind of sacrifice. We are talking about the United States of America leaving in place people who are already there, doing the things they were already doing to prevent people from being shot in the face for walking in the street without a veil. And Joe Biden wasn't even willing to do that. So no, I'm not particularly interested in hearing about never again from this doofus. I mean, his credibility is shot. It's shot. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.